are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm covering more haunted places in the U.S. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website. And that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. All kinds of shows there, more to come. You can also check out the merchandise store, excuse me, and get all kinds of shirts and other items there, with designs created by some friends of the show. And you can also make one-time donations through PayPal, which are also very much appreciated. And speaking of friends, please follow friends of the show. That'd be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever she can join me, if I can talk. Also, Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast, who usually does a paranormal theme show on Sundays, and I always join him for that. And also Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. And I forgot to mention I do call in fairly often, probably most shows really, if I ever look at the numbers, since I found the show, and talk on there as well. And so the way these haunted places in the U.S. shows work is I find some articles and I put them in the episode description for each location, and I get a summary written up for the show, and I read that, and you can check out the links after the show comes out and do more research on your own as well for images, and also to find out the current state of the locations I talk about as to whether or not it's okay to visit them, and when and how, and possible costs and all those things, because I never recommend trespassing for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why it's not a good idea. So, and also I apologize in advance for any words or names I mispronounce, because things happen and words and names can be hard. So I think that takes care of everything. So let me get back to the document here. We are still on, have a couple more places in Minnesota left to go. And then we'll be moving on to Mississippi, either this episode or next, whatever, depending on how long all this takes. So this next location is the Gibbs Farmhouse in St. Paul. I need to be on the proper document for this. I'm looking at the document with all the links. That's not going to help you all. There we go. So this house is a preserved 19th century pioneer homestead that has become locally known for the ghost of a 9-year-old boy. William, or Willie, as he was called, Gibbs, is said to linger in the house and on the surrounding farm. Historical background. Gibbs Farm began as the homestead of Herman and Jane Gibbs, who farmed the land in what is now Falcon Heights and or St. Paul, and later became the core of a museum interpreting pioneer and Dakota life. I'm guessing they mean the Native American tribe? I'm not sure if there is one. But anyway, in 19th century Minnesota, yeah, must be it, I'm thinking. The Gibbs family occupied the farmhouse for about a century. That's a long ways. Until around 1949, after which the site passed into the care of what is now the Ramsey County Historical Society, and was developed as an open-air historic museum. In 1867, a serious prairie or grass fire threatened the farm. During efforts to save the property, the Gibbs' 9-year-old son, William, inhaled smoke and died a short time later. A tragedy that anchors most of the later haunting narratives. The farmhouse itself later suffered a fire as well, a detail sometimes folded into the legend when describing the circumstances of William's death. Core haunting legend. Modern tellings consistently identify the primary spirit as William, or Willie Gibbs, described as an active, playful presence who remains attached to his childhood home. He is said to appear as a rambunctious young boy, visible in upper-story windows or fleetingly around the property, especially the farmhouse interior. Stories focus on one upstairs bedroom that is closed off and used to display period toys. Overnight staff or morning workers allegedly find toys moved or scattered across the rug, despite the room being locked, as if a child had been playing there. Visitors and enthusiasts also report classic residual-style activity inside the 1800s farmhouse. Doors and cupboards opening or closing on their own, and a chair rocking with no one in it, interpreted by some as further signs of an active spirit. Reported phenomena. Across local media, paranormal sites, and anecdotal forums, several recurrent phenomena are described. One is apparitions or fleeting sightings of a boy in a rear second floor window or of the farmhouse. And also, again, toys in the roped-off upstairs room apparently moved during the night, with arrangements changing between closing and opening. Doors, cupboards, and sometimes a rocking chair moving without visible cause in the otherwise quiet historic house. Let's see here. General reports of spirits as a regular occurrence at the farmhouse, though staff quoted in at least one article state that they themselves have not experienced activity and treat the stories as part of local lore rather than the official interpretation. Folklore status today. Gibbs Farmhouse is frequently listed among St. Paul and Minnesota's most haunted historic homes in local ghost tours, real estate blogs, and radio or web features, with the Ghost Boy of Gibbs Farm now a well-established regional legend. At the same time, the museum emphasizes its role as a family-friendly educational site, hosting events such as Halloween programs, Pioneer and Dakota Life Tours, and children's activities that largely treat the haunting stories as background folklore rather than a central attraction. And that's where that one ends. I do wonder with all that other activity there, is that all the boy, or is that just residual? I do think objects can probably be moved by residual forces, but also I wonder, it's always hard to tell when things are being moved if it's always residual or not. So that's always hard to know. But it does sound like a lot of activity there. You have the boy seen around the place, you have the toys being moved, and then doors and rocking chairs moving on their own as well. Okay. This next one here is Four Paws Restaurant in St. Paul. And this occupies the 1870 Victorian mansion built by dry goods merchant Joseph Librant Forepaugh. That's quite the amazing last name. It is Forepaugh. Almost like, again, like the forepaw of an animal. That's really interesting that last name exists. I'm just curious about that. And so it was built by him in the historic Irvine Park neighborhood, and it has become one of Minnesota's best known dinner with a ghost locations. The house later fell into disrepair, was converted to a restaurant in the mid-1970s, and after several closures, most recently in 2019, has been renovated and reopened as a fine dining spot that emphasizes both the history and its haunted reputation. Historical background. That could probably be a whole series too. Then again, I think someone has already done that, sort of haunted restaurants and all that, but could still do one at some point. Historical background. Joseph Forepaugh arrived in St. Paul in the 1850s, made his fortune in wholesale dry goods, and commissioned the three-story Second Empire-style mansion overlooking Irvine Park around 1870 as a showpiece family home. The house was part of a larger enclave of affluent residences that later became the Irvine Park Historic District, now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. By the early 20th century, like many big Victorian homes, the mansion declined from elite residence to boarding house and then stood in poor condition until preservationists and developers converted it into a restaurant in the 1970s. In the 2000s, it was extensively renovated as a high-end restaurant, closed in 2019, and then underwent another major restoration before reopening in the mid-2020s with an updated menu and refreshed but historically sensitive interiors. Core haunting legend. A central ghost story involves a young maid named Molly, said to have worked for the Forepaugh family as a house servant. According to the legend, Joseph and Molly began an affair. When Joseph's wife Mary discovered them and Molly was allegedly pregnant, the scandal drove Molly to die and in the mansion, and which was a tragic act that supposedly imprinted itself on the house. After Molly's death, the story continues. The Forepaws sold the mansion and moved away for a time, and Joseph later slipped into depression and died in 1832. A biographical detail that folklorists and tour guides often tie back narratively to guilt over the affair. Over time, this mix of verifiable history, the family, the house, Joseph's death, and unverified but persistent oral tradition, Molly's romance and pregnancy, there we go, and death, coalesced into the restaurant's canonical haunting narrative. Reported paranormal activity. Molly is described as the primary resident spirit, often characterized as essentially benevolent but mischievous, associated especially with the upper floors and the area linked to her death. Alleged death, actually, it says. Which is important, which is fascinating. So many, we find this over and over again, where there are these legends to explain the paranormal activity, but not always the historical evidence to verify that these events actually happened, and yet there's still activity. Staff and diners have reported cold spots, the feeling of being watched, aromas of perfume, moving objects, and the sensation of someone brushing past on the stairs when no one is there, or no one is visible. Joseph's ghost is also said to appear occasionally, particularly as a well-dressed man strolling through dining rooms or standing at windows with an oddly satisfied expression, if I could talk, reinforcing the tragic romantic framing of the story. Paranormal investigators and psychics invited over the years have variously claimed multiple spirits in the building, including a child spirit, sometimes called Michael, and some tours highlight specific tables and third floor spaces where guests report the most activity. Haunting in present day operations. The current restaurant embraces the mansion's reputation, marketing the setting as historic, elegant, and haunted, which has made it a staple of local ghost tours and Halloween season media coverage. Renovations have aimed to preserve original architectural features like staircases, chandeliers, and period-style rooms, both for historic authenticity and because these spaces are essential to the legends guests expect to experience. That's not good. Never go to a place expecting anything paranormal will happen, because you never know. It might just not. Local news segments and features on the reopening often mention the ghost stories alongside the food, sometimes showcasing Molly's table or referencing the third floor as the most active area, blending culinary tourism with paranormal lore. As a result, Four Paws now functions simultaneously as a preserved 19th century home, an upscale restaurant, and a living piece of St. Paul ghost folklore that continues to attract diners specifically seeking a brush with the supernatural. So, yeah, it really blows my mind how over and over again we have these legends about places, and there's not a ton of evidence that these deaths, in most cases, actually happened. And I'm looking over this next section here, and it's huge. So I think we're going to just sort of talk about haunted places in general for the rest of the show, because I don't want to really try to do this and have to cut it too short. And it's actually so just a tease for next time here, next one of these episodes, the McRaven House in Vicksburg, Mississippi. I have heard of this place, and I've heard that it is supposedly haunted. So, but yeah, just so many of these places, and I mean, I feel like if I haven't done a show on this idea already, I should. Maybe I'll just do one again at some point, because I don't think it can hurt to sort of push that point and just point it out to people that maybe haven't been looking into these things. So many places have their legends about how people acted and or why they passed where they did, in the location. And yet, if you look around, there's so much debate about whether or not these events actually happened. And there's a couple of famous examples of this. Of course, the Murdo's Plantation. I have found sites that said, yeah, the historical evidence is not there, and the most well-known apparition, Chloe, that was never a real person. And other places that say there is some evidence. So it's always in debate. And yet, this apparition that looks just like the legend describes that Chloe looking like has been seen and even caught in a picture or two over the years in the Myrtles plantation. And that's not the only thing that happens there. But also, another famous case is the Winchester Mystery House and the whole story with Sarah Winchester. There's a lot of debate and discussion around how much of that story about her contacting spirits and a medium contacting a medium to contact spirits and all that, how much of that actually happened, and all these things. So it makes me just wonder how many places. It seems like every time I do one of these shows, when there's a legend involved in a place, I don't know, 9 times out of 10, the articles will say there's no historical evidence of these events happening. But there are reports that match the legend. And it's really fascinating to me, and I think what that points to is all the thoughts and energy and emotions generated by retellings of these legends to people that visit these places over decades probably could possibly fuse together all that energy and all that thought and either make some kind of a thought form entirely out of just nothing except those stories, or the other possibility is always that there's some being, there's some entity that is there that hears all of these accounts and takes on all this energy and takes the form of the figure or figures in the legends. And I don't know if there's a way to know for sure which is the case. And it makes me wonder about how many places that try to downplay all their paranormal activity. How much of that is those legends? I mean, there's still legends about places that really don't focus on this, and the activity is still there. So it's really fascinating, all these variables that can lead to places that are said to be haunted, and this paranormal activity as to how and why it happens. So it's just something, again, doing this series and just looking into research and doing other shows makes me wonder how many places overall in the U.S. have a history of paranormal activity, and then have historical documents and evidence to sort of help them figure out who or what is there. So it's really wild. Yeah, Matt's all here in the chat, and this is the thing too. I mean, people come to our attraction, please. It is not haunted. Yeah. So, and I mean, I forget. I think it was in the Troubled Minds server once. It might have been you, Matt. So I'm not sure if it was you or someone else. Posted a picture of an apartment building in New Orleans that had a for rent sign or for sale sign or whatever, and one of the key phrases in that sign. Awesome! Thank you, Metal. One of the things that the sign says in big letters is "not haunted," because of course the joke is that everything in New Orleans is haunted. So, but there are, I mean, I'm sure it's a meme, okay, but it's based on real life events. So anyway, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.